clients are looking for answers. They're looking for, how do I be able to do this better? And so they're open in ways that they weren't in the past to new solutions and new ways of doing things, because there's a lot of things that just are not working. So this is actually a real advantage that the market is this way, because also you're having your weaker competitors are going to be thinned out. A lot of agencies are actually going to be thinned out in this market because they're focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on optimizing for what's going to further commoditize their company instead of optimizing for excellence.
They said getting started was the hardest part, but no one told you how hard it is to scale a custom service business. It's time for your team to step up, but your clients want you. Discover how to scale to 7 figures and beyond by freeing up time and getting your team to run whole parts of the company so you can focus on scaling profits. This is the Hands Off CEO with Mandi Ellefson.
So our topic today is the number one advantage that the top 5% of firms have and how to build it in 30 days. So there's a very big growing dichotomy between the companies that are doing really well and the companies that are struggling. And the gap is getting wider and wider. And what this looks like, let me just end this to be able to get my full bandwidth here. Thanks for your patience. So I'm going to be sharing with you what actually the very best firms are doing right now and how to actually be able to, let me shut off this other streamer. All right. So I'm going to be sharing with you what's working right now to be able to sell $100,000 deals plus, what the top firms are able to do, and how they're positioning in the market, and what it was not even just the smaller firms, but it's the firms that are not doing as well, what they are doing. So there's a number one advantage these top 5% of firms have, and most consulting firms don't realize it, but they're winning not because they're working harder. It's not because they're reasonably priced. And while all the connections help, it might not even be because of their network either, because I've actually seen some really great consulting firm owners who have fantastic networks, but they're still struggling. And the reason why is because they don't know how to fully optimize that network because they're missing this one thing. And when I figured this one simple advantage out, it was a complete game changer for me. It completely changed the whole direction of this company. And I have focused my company, Hands Off CEO, around building this one thing. And as a result, I've helped our clients be able to build this one thing in their company as well. So I'm going to be sharing with you what that missing piece is, which, like, if you saw the picture on it, it's proof. That's what it is. Okay. And how the top 1%, or I guess I said the top 5%, but what is the number one thing that the top 5% are doing, and how to package your results into case studies that land $100,000 plus clients, and also how you can start building the system in under 30 days. So here's the problems that we're hearing a lot in the market is a couple different versions of this. One, and these are actually pretty word for word from consulting firms and agencies that I've actually heard and spoken to personally. One shared, we came out of the gates fast in 2025, looking at this might be another banner year for us. And then the geopolitical conflicts, the tariffs, and erratic political leadership made companies be really nervous, and they start second guessing their marketing budgets. And I just think some clients have backburnered projects, and in some cases lost government funding. And, we're doing okay, but margins are getting squeezed. So that's one example. They're doing okay, but their margins are getting squeezed. Can you relate with that? And having marketing budgets shrink. And here's another example of another agency owner who shared, my business is reliant on other people making smart decisions that I can't control. And I've been too soft with my team, dropping balls. I've been soft with clients, giving what you need to actually do the work. But maybe I've just become too much of an order taker, and it's just not like me. And, he shared, I've stepped out of sales, but it's just not working at all because we've sold 0 new clients in the last month. And here I am stepping back in. I'm going to hire a setter, but in the meantime, I'm hustling again. So these are just some different scenarios that we're relying on other people to be able to make smart decisions that you can't control. And in doing that, it really impacts the proof that you can show for your clients, doesn't it? So I'm going to share with you how you can overcome that and what to do instead. And on the flip side, the companies that are scaling into the top 5% are doing something very differently. And I'll share with you a couple things that they're actually, this is what they're sharing. Sales calls have become a lot easier. My accountant called up and congratulated us on our best month ever, over double from an average 3 months earlier. Another CEO shared, helping clients see the impact of our entire process, the full timeline and outcomes has allowed us to expand the support we can provide. And we just secured our two largest clients ever with a 353% increase over our previous average monthly retainer. This person also went on to share that they actually doubled their net profits in 18 months. And I know that those numbers have actually only grown since then. I know that because they're one of our clients. And my team sees security and growth. The old way was hard. With fewer clients, they can now focus more on outcomes and feel less stressed. So that's what those that are scaling into the top 5% are doing. And I say scaling into the top 5% because it's a journey. It's a journey. And like what the end looks like though is moving from, 5 to 6 figure deals into 7 to 6 to 7 figure deals. That's what we're seeing a lot with companies like Wally, for example, went from charging 2,500 to 25,000 to 100,000 to 250,000 to $1 million. Like they continue to stair step up their prices as their results continue to get better and better. And that is one pathway that is the pathway of excellence. And it's the pathway that very few are choosing. Most people right now are choosing the pathway of let's look at AI, which is the next new shiny tool in the toolbox, and saying, how do we be able to streamline and be able to make our operations as tight and as profitable and low cost as possible? And meanwhile, forgetting that the whole thing that clients are paying you for is actual results. So now, while AI can be really great and all those tools can be exceptional to help you be able to get bigger outcomes, the problem is that most agencies are focusing on the wrong thing. They're focusing on optimizing for their own profit instead of optimizing for their client's profit. And here's the thing is when you optimize for your client's profit, you can charge a significantly higher amount for your services, which will generate a much higher profit even if your operations are clunky. Here's the thing is you can win at this even if you have a little bit bloated operations. I don't recommend that. I would actually suggest tightening that up and really keeping things nice and streamlined, but start first with outcomes. Optimize for that, and then you'll be able to streamline based upon what's actually working, based upon what there's market demand for, instead of putting the cart before the horse and trying to put together this really beautiful cart, let's just say, that has no horse to take it. And that's what a lot of companies are doing. I'm going to build this better offer. And they're not looking at the very most important thing is what clients actually want to buy, which is real tangible results. But more than that, a bigger vision. So the number one advantage that the top 5% of firms have, it's even separate from proof. It's even separate from the proof in the case studies. It's that when their clients hire them, they see a vision that they couldn't accomplish on their own. And they have a very high degree of certainty that they'll get those results. So now these top 5% of firms, they may have gotten there. They might be these legacy companies that have gotten to that, defining that position from decades earlier, from the right partnerships, contacts in larger corporations that maybe they were employed in at an earlier time that allows them to lend this authority. I've seen that a lot. And that can be a great thing to leverage if you have that. They're often well connected but really at the end of the day, they're referred to very often, and they've been able to leverage that to be able to be the top 5% firm. Now, here's the problem. Maybe you don't have those relationships, or maybe you haven't worked at one of those prestigious companies. Maybe you just don't have those proof and those case studies in place yet. And these larger companies that like the larger firms like the Deloittes and the McKinseys in your industry, like what got them to their level of prestige and position will not necessarily work in this market. So what they're leaning on that they maybe developed 30, 40 years ago that has brought them to their market position right now, or it could be 20 years ago, but whatever it built them to this, we're in a different world now, and it won't necessarily work in the same way. So, and that also, it took decades for them to get there. So how do you be able to get there faster? So I'm going to share with you a few pieces of this puzzle today. I can't share with you the entire thing. I actually will share the entire thing on an executive briefing that I do. If you're interested, you can come just type in briefing, and we'll share with you more information for like the entire process with us. But what I am going to be doing a deeper dive into is how to build proof in your industry. How do you be able to build proof to be able to overcome hesitancy in an environment where there's lower trust, where there is all these crazy, weird political things that are happening that are making your clients hesitant, that are making them nervous about their marketing budget. And AI is just changing things so much that like companies are just not really sure what to do. Now, here's the thing is that the great advantage to that is that you actually can utilize that to your advantage. So what I'm actually sharing here works even better in a market like it is right now, where there's a lot of uncertainty. It works the best right now. I remember we saw better results with this process that we're teaching here in 2020 when there was a tremendous amount of uncertainty than even in years before that, because clients are looking for answers. They're looking for, how do I be able to do this better? And so they're open in ways that they weren't in the past to new solutions and new ways of doing things, because there's a lot of things that just are not working. So this is actually a real advantage that the market is this way, because also you're having your weaker competitors are going to be thinned out. A lot of agencies are actually going to be thinned out in this market because they're focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on optimizing for what's going to further commoditize their company instead of optimizing for excellence. So, which is what we're going to talk about this. So the top consulting agencies have best in class case studies. So the ones that are actually building into this and jumping years ahead and being able to gain a market position in a matter of months and moving into you're not going to gain full market positioning in months. That's unreasonable. But you can start generating much bigger sales. You can start being able to charge double or triple what you are doing now, and maybe get some of your highest level engagements that you've gotten in the past, be able to start selling those on a regular basis. So if your highest engagement in the past was, $20,000 a month, then what would it look like in your company to be able to have all of your clients coming in, or almost all of your clients coming in at $20,000 a month, and actually having a year-long retainer for that, and specifically a year-long growth plan? Well, for them to see that, it's a lot easier if you have proof to back it up. So how do you build that proof? And how do you be able to build this fairly quickly? So what they have in place is they've created positioning in order to have strategic relationships with the C-suite, so that you're not just seen as another set of hands. So a lot of agencies and consulting firms and advisors, what goes on is they get stuck in this trap of being yes man, basically. Like, oh, you need help with this? Yes, I can do that. You need help with that? Yes, I can do that. Because that's the only problems that they're bringing to you. Instead, what if you looked at, and imagine that you have a bridge where you have your prospect and their pain, like where they're at right now. And on one side of the bridge, on the other side of the bridge, it's like this beautiful, expansive vision that they could have. Now, here's the problem is that your prospect only sees a little bit down that bridge, and they come to you with these little tactical little problems saying, hey, can you build us a plan for this? Can you put us in place a website? Can you go and build this thing for us? Can you do this creative for us? And they're looking at it in a way that is not going to actually solve their problem. So they're bringing budgets to you that are not going to be sufficient to be able to create the real transformation that it's possible, right? So what we need to do is look further down the bridge for them and build that bridge out and show them what's possible. Show them what's possible. So what we want to be doing is we want to first look at that bridge for ourselves and say, we're going to look at this bridge for a client. Well, first we have to define what client it's going to be, right? We have to define what kind of client we want to create this transformation for. And we have to actually stand in that future of the transformation. Then the opportunity here is so it's a lot easier to do if you've already done this before. So if you already have clients and you have results with clients that I'll just give you an example. Let's say that you took a company that was $5 million and you put together growth strategies that were part of what took them to $10 million, right? It's not going to, the thing is that everything that you did is not going to be the full sum of what it took for them to double their company, for example, but you were a critical part of that. And that's one of the things that we actually see as well, is that a lot of agency owners are nervous about actually claiming those results because they're like, well, I didn't do all of it. They also had that their sales team sold the work. They had this other piece that was working on. Now, here's the thing is that yes, that there were a lot of other parts, but you were a critical piece to that. And you want to own your part in that, but in a way where you're actually making them the star. You want to make your clients the star, right? Because they were the ones that actually saw it through, even if you were there partnering with them. So you want to make them the star. And you want to look at what is this end result? What is this end transformation that we want to create for this client? And you start looking backwards at that transformation. And then you look at what would it take for us to engineer that kind of result every single time with our clients? What would it take? And this is where the success conditions come in. So success conditions are, what do you need to have in place for you to be able to deliver this transformation? So for example, I'm going to use the going from 5 to 10 million. Now, here's the thing is that a lot of agencies, that they will share that, we did that one time, or, another one looked kind of like that another time, but they kind of look like it's a fluke. And they're not sure how to replicate that over and over again. And the fact is that you can replicate it, but you have to look at what were the conditions that you had to have in place in order to be able to double that company. So when you look at it from that angle, now you're looking at, well, they gave us the budget. That's a critical piece, right? It might be that, the CEO had a growth mindset, and they were open to new ideas. They had a sales team that was actually closing sales. Their close rate was above, let's say it was above 25%. Let's just throw that out there. And they had a team that was supportive. So they list off all these things that they need to have in place in order to deliver that bigger transformation. And then also is looking at, what are your clients that had pitiful results, and getting honest and saying, what was missing? What was missing? And it might be the flip opposite of what we just listed out about the most ideal clients had. So on the flip side, it might be that, they had some negative people on their team. Their sales team wasn't converting. They wouldn't take your advice on putting in place this marketing strategy, for example, or whatever it is, right? Made the difference between whether you were not able to get the full results with them versus the companies that you got really great results with. And when you're looking at that, then you have your list for what are the success conditions that we need to require. So this is like really your leadership list. This is your opportunity to be able to see, all right, what are those pieces that we need to hold our clients account to? So now when you're working backwards and you're saying, this is the transformation that we need, that we want, looking at our bridge, we're building across to this bridge. These are the success conditions that we need in place to get them from this place on the bridge all the way to this other dream location, right? That they didn't even think is possible. Now the opportunity is to actually create the client to show up in the way that they need to in order to get the result. I hear all the time, it's like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? And here's the thing is that that's true on one side, but it's also abdicating responsibility. Because the thing is that you can also entice the horse to want to drink the water too, right? I bet I could get a horse to drink water, right? You can lead them to water, but here's the thing is I might take that horse out in the corral and ride it around for a while to make it tired, and it's probably going to be pretty thirsty, right? So how do you be able to impact if your client is the horse and then drinking the water, how do you be able to impact them wanting to drink the water, for example? There's a lot of ways that you can do that. And the biggest way is to actually dangle the really beautiful carrot, which is this bigger outcome. And it's looking at, like, this is what's possible for your company. I see this possible in the next 2 years for you to have this in your company. But in order to do that, we need X, Y, and Z. Are you committed to this? Are you committed to this? And then it's simply about managing those success conditions. Now, the problem is that a lot of leaders, well, they're not leading. They get in the place with their team, their account managers are working together with the clients, and they're actually doing this people pleasing thing. And part of what's going on is that their pipeline is dry and they're fearful of losing clients. So they do whatever the client wants. Well, can you go and make this bigger? Okay, sure. Can you go and add this extra thing to the campaign? Sure, we can do that. Can you go and add this extra, all these things? You're like, oh my gosh, really? Now we're going over scope. You're like, okay, fine, we'll do that. And that's what's going on the back end with your team. And what's actually going on is that while your team is being so pleasant and so helpful and so accommodating, the client is losing trust with you. The client is not seeing your leadership. And what ends up happening is that to prevent this whole dynamic from going on, then oftentimes the CEO jumps into the service delivery to be able to make sure that there is leadership there, that clients are getting results, and it's at the expense of the owner getting tired, worn out, and not actually having time to grow the company. They're actually in service delivery because the service delivery is not optimized to actually deliver outcomes, and the team is not trained to be able to lead the client, because lead the client where? Checking off boxes and delivering deliverables is not leading a client. So your team needs coaching and mentorship around how to actually show up powerfully with clients. Because if they don't have that, you will be the one being the glue, filling in the gaps there, because they don't have that mindset of that mindset of a CEO. That is the level of ownership. They need to learn how to do that. So there's some critical things that I unpacked there. And I want to reinforce about the pipeline, because if you are showing up with your clients from a place of scarcity, you will not be delivering them the things that they need. Your job is to give them what they need and to deliver them an outcome, not for them to like you. But the great thing is that when you actually are managing to that outcome, when you are providing that leadership that no one else on their team is providing, which is why they need you, they will like you better. And that's how you can up-level the results that you're seeing with your clients, and you can start seeing different results immediately. When our clients come into our growth, we have a 12-week growth intensive that we do, where we're helping them be able to double their prices, and we're helping them be able to take their services and tweak the different ways that they're doing their services. Doesn't usually take very much, a different way of doing their services, but it's a different way that they're leading their services. And what they notice is that even like the first week, the way that they start showing up with their clients is different. Their clients start including them in higher level conversations. They start being able to get to be part of the decision making. And that allows you to be able to start guiding the client in the direction that's going to be best for the company and best for you as you are servicing this client and keeping them for years, right? So if they're making decisions that are not going to be best for the company, you really need to be part of those discussions to prevent them from happening, because otherwise it will probably be a lot of extra work for you afterwards anyway, because you have to go and implement somebody else's plan, which you know is inferior, right? Now, so I just talked about the different mindset that you want to have towards your services. I just talked about how you want to look at building an end outcome and then operationalizing your services to hit that end outcome. Now, this might sound complicated, but really it's actually, our clients report that it's usually just a few tweaks in some of the things that they're already doing. Like Christy, she was sharing how that she was doing an SEO service. And once she started to implement this different way of looking at it with an outcome, and her outcome specifically is adding $500,000 per location for mental health clinics, for counseling centers. So she's able to go, her firm is able to add 500,000. She did not think that was possible at first, but she was so dedicated and so committed to delivering results for her clients. And she's like, I just don't know how to do it. They're not giving us enough budget. These companies typically are quite small and they don't have the budget to give us. Now, here's what she found. Those same prospects that said, we don't have the budget, she came back with this new offer that said, this is the level of growth that we're going to be creating for your company in the next year. And they're like leaning in. Yes, I want this. This is interesting. And say, well, these are the success conditions. We need to have these things in place. We need to have this budget. And this is how you need to be showing up in your sales to be able to reach that. And what's happened here is that those same clients that said no before, she was able to go and close for 300% higher price point. Same clients, the same ones who said, I didn't have the budget. How did that happen? She actually created the budget. And that's one of the things that's really critical right now, is looking at how do we be able to expand budgets with the existing clients that we have right now, existing prospects. It might mean going up market to another higher level target market. But in Christy's case, she actually really feels aligned with servicing these type of companies. And you know what? She can also work with larger ones where they have a conglomerate of, maybe 4 or 5 offices, and you can see how that stacks up, right? So that's completely revolutionized her company in a very short amount of time. She started seeing these results and and upgrading her clients for 250% higher price point and new clients for over 300%. Now, this provides so much extra profit to a service where you actually have the bandwidth to be able to properly service these accounts, to be able to drive that growth. And you're also getting the buy-in from the client. The buy-in is so critical because you need to have them show up in a certain way. It's a partnership, right? So and if they don't follow through on those success conditions, you can't actually create that kind of result, right? Maybe you can, but it's certainly going to be harder to do it without that. And you're not on the hook for those end outcomes if they can't actually show up in those success conditions. But the problem is that most agencies are not focusing on what success conditions they need to have in place to deliver the best results. And instead, they're focusing on all these trivial things that are, and the root cause of that is all about, it's all about me. It's thinking about, what do I want? Well, I want more money. I want more profits. I want more sales. I want this. I want my company to be better, right? And they're thinking all about themselves instead of looking at and deeply empathizing with what their clients are experiencing and what their prospects want. And when you actually start making it about them and you get in their world, now all of a sudden they lean in and they want to hear more. And that's what it does when you have your business is built as a machine to actually generate case studies. So now what this means is, like, one of the things that we hear oftentimes a lot as well is that, well, our clients don't give us access to those numbers. Well, here's the thing, is if the clients are not giving you access to those numbers, what that means is you're a vendor. They see you as a vendor. They see you as a set of hands. And the problem with a set of hands is that a set of hands is a commodity, and you can find commodities in a lot of places. There's always a cheaper set of hands somewhere else. And you might say, oh, but we're great quality. It's like, well, yes, but here's the thing is if someone charges a lot less than you and maybe their quality is it's not quite as good, they still might see that as a higher value. So you need to be positioned with your client as a strategic advisor that they value. Otherwise, they will not give you access to the numbers that you need so that you actually have the metrics in place and the feedback loops in place to be able to deliver these results. If you don't know the numbers, how on earth can you actually be able to know whether you're being successful? When I'm talking about numbers, I'm not talking about vanity metrics that you care about. I'm not talking about impressions. I'm not talking about clicks. I'm not talking about even appointments set or leads. I'm specifically talking right now a lot about on the marketing and sales side. And while we have a lot of other case studies for companies that are in the B2B space that are quite different than that, I'm using this as a simple example because I think it's a little bit easier to understand and conceptualize this. So it's not just about these lower level results or outcomes. It's about the actual dollar amount for the company. Like, how are you saving them profits, or how are you generating more profits for them? How are you saving money? How are you helping them be able to grow top line income? How are you helping their company measurably make a difference in the world, right? So when you make your equations based upon that, it creates a very different company that you're building. And it creates a company that is, like, I'll give you an example of Jerry, one of our clients. He grew 300% in 3 years, which is a considerable amount of growth, actually, and was able to go and bring in clients that were paying multiple 6-figure and 7 figures. And that really changed his whole business, right? And you're able to do that when you're focusing on the right things. And when you can go and master your whole category when you are focusing on the right things. So now, after you've created the positioning, after you've tracked you're now tracking the metrics that, and especially the metrics that are outside of your control, not just the metrics that are inside of your control, but the ones outside of your control, because then you're going to have the opportunities, to ask what's missing to reach this end outcome. So, and might look at it as an impossible goal. I'll use growing a company, like doubling a company, for example, as this example. Now, what is missing to be able to double this company over 12 months or over 24 months? What is missing in order to double this company? And this is, by the way, this is first principles thinking. So if you're working on the marketing, you say, what's missing here? Well, the sales team actually are not actually responding to these leads fast enough. It's like, why aren't they responding to the leads fast enough? Well, they actually don't have a process in place to be able to follow up with the leads. Or it might go down a whole different way. You might find that there's incompetent salespeople. You might find that the leadership is not actually keeping them focused on the most important things around what you're driving. You might find gaps. So here's the thing is, like, that's what leaders do. They take ownership and they make things happen that wouldn't have happened without them. It doesn't mean that as a leader doesn't mean that you have to go in there and actually, like, coach their sales team, though it might not be a bad idea. But it does mean that you have to be the one shining a light on these problems and leading them to actually create the changes and the critical pieces that will actually drive impact. So then, now looking at this, what we want to do is change the frame from here's how to operationalize our services from deliverables, tasks, maybe a goal, but a lower level goal, to here's how to be able to create this really impossible transformation that nobody else is able to do. So when you do that, you become a category of one, and you really have no competition. And what that means is that the same prospects that that went and ghosted you maybe a month or two ago, you might be able to reopen those conversations with them and come up with, say, hey, I've got another idea. That's actually Christy was sharing. She actually came to one of our executive briefings, and she was sharing how she went and used our lowest hanging fruit process to be able to find all this extra pipeline. And she actually sold a number of new clients with just the past prospects that said no, that she was able to reactivate because she had the right offer. So proof is really powerful. And even if you don't have the proof yet, and actually a number of our clients who have implemented this have not had the proof yet. They have chosen to stand in the future state and work backwards and say, what is it going to take for me to be able to create this? And then the key here though, is like, you're probably thinking, well, that sounds like a lot of work. It's like, well, yeah, you're doing work that the rest of the people in your market aren't willing to do, because you want to have a company that's going to sustain itself for years to come, and that's going to be profitable, and that will allow you to be able to scale profits without scaling headcount. Because here's the thing, is that when you be able to get paid twice as much for the same work that you're doing, about the same number of hours, it's not twice as much profitable. That could be as much as 300% higher profit. I feel like I've used the number 300% a lot. I've actually seen profit increases of 1,000% on a gross profit for when you're doubling the fees. So it can be incredibly powerful, because every new dollar that you make is pure profit. So what that means is that you can then invest it back into your company to hire a manager, to install actual professional management in your company, so that you can focus on growing the company instead of getting stuck in the weeds and being the one, like the glue holding everything together. And I'm just can't even begin to tell you how powerful it is to have that manager in place. But the thing is you need to have, you really need to define what it is that you're scaling, so that they can actually then operationalize that. You need to be able to have the profit margins and the cash flow to be able to hire those people, and to be able to hire experts that are as good as you at the services that you do, so that you can step back and you can grow the company. Or it may be that you actually want to get to a point where you can start working less hours in the company. So that's definitely possible too. All right. So packaging up the results and into, you want to be packaging these results here as you're going here. You're going to be tracking these results as you're going through with your clients. Now, how do you track those results for clients is going to depend a lot on what your business is and what is important to your client. And that last part's really important. What is important to your client? What are their metrics that they care about? Those are the metrics that you should care about. And then actually even go further than that and look at, how do you be able to take this company that we're working with right now into a whole different category? What is that next category that they want to get into? How could you help them take them there? What service could you offer them that would help them that would help them be able to get there? And then you're going to be planning the actions and deliverables that they need to get those outcomes, as opposed to just the outcomes and deliverables. Most companies start from the beginning and they say, well, all right, we have this goal here. We're going to put this plan. We're going to put these actions and deliverables, and we'll see what it does, right? We'll see I hope it works. Instead of starting from the end and working backwards and saying, what do we need? What are the milestones that we need to be hitting all the way through, and then managing to that? I'm giving a lot away right now. I hope this is really valuable. Let me know. Send me an email. Reach out to Mandi at handsoffco.com if this is resonating, and if there's an area you'd like for me to dig deeper into. I'm going to give another case study here. I'm going to give you one more case study on this, because this is what I'm seeing a lot with some of the most talented consulting agency owners. They have exceptional experience. They have great results. They're not packaged anywhere on their website because they're nervous about claiming it, or maybe they haven't gotten permission for their clients, but they have really incredible results. But they're actually working together with clients in a way that's so much lower than they know they're capable of, because that's all that the client is giving them budget for. One CEO in particular I'm going to share about, he was not doing too bad. He was had some projects that would be coming in. They were smaller projects and they weren't really that ideal. But they wanted to be doing more of this advisory level work that it's like they got paid like $8,000 a month, and they would do it for about 8 or 9 months with a client, right? And that was like, he's like, I just want more of that work. And when we broke it down and we looked at the kind of results they could create and how they could take these companies from one level up to a completely different level. And, we're looking at like we're looking at like a $20 million impact. We looked at what would it take to be able to make that consistent, what would it take to be able to create that result every single time with a client. So, and instead of having more broad messaging that will appeal to whatever referral comes in, what if instead we actually position the company around the kind of results that they want to be known for, which is going and adding $20 million to a company in a certain number of years, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to position him from going at $8,000 a month, like on the high end, to going to $20,000 a month and having year-long engagements. Completely different equation. And right now he can see $10,000 a month. I can see 20. I already see it. He already can do it. He's probably going to need to close the next couple sales at $10,000 a month for a 12-month engagement, which already is a huge amount of profit increase on what they're doing. That's an extra $2,000 a month, and then for a 12-month engagement instead of an 8-month engagement. So like it's considerably more. I haven't done the math yet on that, but I know his next level is getting to $20,000 a month, and I know he's totally going to be doing that. But that's what's possible when you start looking at it from the client's perspective and saying, what kind of transformation could we create for them? And how do I need to show up in order to create this transformation? How do they need to show up for me to be able to lead this transformation? And then you just create your positioning around that. And then you use that to consistently bring in the right type of clients, because your offer is totally badass then. And no one can compete with you. And as long as what you're offering is something that's of value, which it absolutely is, and it's for a market that there is enough of addressable market, and that as long as you get your messaging to land with it, then you have a company that is considerably more profitable. In fact, you can double your net profits this way in 12 months. You can do it in less. Sometimes our clients take a little more than that if that's the direction they want to take, but you actually can double your net profits in 12 months doing this overall for the entire company. So this is powerful. And I really hope that those that are listening, as you're listening to this, you're making a choice here. You're making a choice to really go after excellence, to choose to scale excellence, which allows you to scale profits instead of scaling headcount, which is just going to scale headaches, or instead of scaling more complexity in your business around AI and more systems and lower price points to be able to go after the wider mass market that are going to have these clients that are just going to be total pain in the butt clients that won't respect you, that won't give you what you need to be successful, that won't give you budgets where you can actually do anything impactful, and that overall will just be a drain on your whole company. Instead, you can be paid what you're actually truly worth for the best work that you're doing, not just because you're worth it. You're infinitely valuable. It's not about you being worth it. It's about your services being worth it. And you positioning your services around the most valuable outcome that you can produce. And you might not have ever even produced it yet, but that's the visioning part. And that's where you can be able to scale your excellence. So I have an invitation here. I actually put together a really cool a profit map that helps you be able to actually generate more pipeline. So it's a 500K pipeline map. And if you would like to if you want to be able to find another $500,000 of pipeline in your company, you can utilize what I already shared right here. And then you can utilize these 4 scripts that you can find you can find existing opportunities in 4 ways. I'm sharing 4 scripts in 4 different ways. It's proven to generate millions of dollars of sales. I've personally used this to generate millions of dollars of sales with your existing network. You have way more opportunities than you even realize. And that pipeline map will actually show you how to be able to do that. The 500K pipeline map. So just type pipeline map in the comments if you'd like to have access to that. And my team will get it off to you. But this can help you be able to find another sale in the next 30 days. You can employ what I'm just sharing right here to be able to position your services. And you can employ this pipeline map to be able to find new opportunities, to be able to, at the very least, triple your pipeline and be able to use that pipeline to be able to then get the right sales in place so you can actually go and invest further in your company. This is Mandi Ellefson from Hands Off CEO, wishing you a prosperous Q4 during this buying season. And I'd love to hear what your biggest takeaways from this in the comments.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hands Off CEO with Mandi Ellefson. If you want to work less and make more, make sure you subscribe and get a new episode every week, and help spread the word by leaving a review.